Hi, I'm Bridgette from Quality Sewing and I'm the manager of the service department. Today we wanted to go over how to diagnose common problems that you might have at home and what you can do to help you resolve the issue. So, some of the main issues we have is like one of them being your needle threader, right? So you get home with your machine, you bring your needle up with your hand wheel, and you try to thread your needle. That's actually one of the main problems is that you turn the hand wheel. If you press your needle up down button on the front of your machine, it puts it into the proper position to be able to thread your needle and you will not miss. If you don't have a needle up down button on your machine itself, you can use the hand wheel. Just make sure your needle's in the furthest position and it should thread every time. If it doesn't, one of the things you could check is your needle size. Make sure to use a 7511 or larger. That will help the thread come through the eye of the needle. So that's one thing that we do see. Another thing is making, like, let's say your thread's shredding. The eye of the needle for different style needles is a different size. So when we service a machine, we send back these little thread packs, or sorry, needle packs. And inside here, it talks about different needles and what they're used for. So if you're getting shred threads, a denim needle has a much smaller eye than like an embroidery needle. So embroidery thread is a little bit more coarse. So you'll want to use like an embroidery needle for embroidery thread, or top stitch needle, which has a really large eye, for king tut thread, or a quilting thread. And the reason for that is it offers more room, so you have less shredding. So shredding threads is another big thing we have, and I would definitely recommend, looking at the needle chart and choosing the right needle for the right job, and that will help with that issue. One of the other things is, what size needle do I use for this style of material? And they do make a little thread guide by the Inspira needle. And let's say you're going to be doing like a woven cotton for quilting. You just bring it down to that and see the arrow, how it lines up, and it'll tell you should use a 75 when you're sewing cotton, like to piece, and it's a quilting needle. Or what to use a ballpoint needle for, because sometimes we don't always know what a needle's for. So a ballpoint is for like jersey, and so you would just come down here and you're like, okay, that's the material I'm using, that's the size needle. So this little chart is really handy to know what style needle for what fabric you're doing. So let's say you're skipping stitches when you're doing denim, and you're like, what's going on? First, change the needle. Change the needle. Make sure you're using a denim needle. Check the size. Make sure it's like a 90-14 or what they recommend for that material. Also, cleaning under your needle plate is really important. This one, it gets really linty over time. Making sure to keep this clean. If let's say your bobbin thread sensor isn't working, which is another common issue, cleaning in here. And I love this little it's like a longer brush. It makes it so handy for getting down in to the spots, but making sure this is all cleaned out, full of lint, because one project and you'll have lint down here and your bobbin thread sensor might not work. So it might not tell you when you're low on bobbin thread. So making sure you clean this out. And there's also another one, if you don't have much lint in there, that has a little ball on here, and it'll clean it out really good, and just get it all nice, and it's small so it gets in there good. Checking to make sure all this is cleaned out. Don't remove this little felt. That's another thing we see. That felt's there for a reason. It holds your thread when it's going to cut. The cutter runs right there, so make sure not to pull that off. It's supposed to be there. And just cleaning out your bobbin case. That'll help with stitching, quality. It'll help with your sensor. So just making sure your machine's clean and it won't get down into all the moving components. So on this machine, you don't have to remove screws, but usually you do to get the needle plate off. This one, we get spoiled and it's just a little switch right here. Making sure your bobbin's in the correct direction. So let's say you're having some tension issues. You know, we get a lot of machines in for tension related issues, which some of it can be resolved at home. Making sure the drop-in style bobbin is going this direction, and a lot of times they have a little diagram or refer to your manual. If it's a bobbin that pushes in the front, it goes the opposite direction. So making sure that that's in there, and I like to hold the top of here and bring it around to make sure it really gets in the tension. The other thing is in your with the tension related things is always make sure to thread it with the presser foot in the up position, not down. If you have it in the up, it opens the discs and allows it to get into the tension discs up here. So that part's really important. So we're gonna come down, around. All right, so now let's, oops, I pushed the wrong button. You can't push the cutter button, it will not thread. Now let's talk about tensions. So we thread it with the presser foot in the up position, we put our bobbin case in the right directions. Tensions, this is a really good tension here in the center. It meets right on the points on the top and bottom. But this one, you see right here how it's pulling to the top? Can you see that? Okay, tensions are not too scary. It's really easy for you to adjust it. Sometimes with decorative stitches or with just a standard regular stitch, you might have to adjust that yourself in the user settings. That's what they're there for. Because sometimes different threads give a different tension, and also different stitches give a different tension because the needle might be pulling in a different direction and a different speed. So if it's pulling to the top like this, you need to loosen your top tension. And if it's pulling to the bottom like this one, you need to tighten your top. And Ruth, will you roll over here and let me show them? Some machines have it right on the front of the screen, or right on the front of the machine, a little dial to change the tensions. But also some of them have them in the menu. This one has it right here. So if I want to, on this one, if I want to make that bottom thread pull to the back side, I'm going to actually loosen it up. So lower the number and, you know, let's just say 3 and try it on a sample piece and make sure it's pulling to the back. And then on this one where it's pulling to the back side and I want to pull that bobbin thread to the top, I'm going to tighten it. So a lot of them have, see where it turned black? That's like the factory setting. So it'll tell you where you started out. So then we just go up a little bit. And then try it out on a piece of sample fabric and make sure that you get it where it's laying just how you like it. So that's another thing that we get machines in for, and it's very easy to change it yourself. Now, if you have to be too dramatic on it, then of course you might want to have the bobbin case adjusted and stuff like that. But overall, it's a pretty basic settings right here to change it. The other thing is that we get sometimes is the bobbin winder is engaged, and on some of them, you don't realize it, it's just sitting there spinning. So you bring your machine in because it's not sewing and you hear a buzzing sound. Double check that your bobbin winder is not engaged, so make sure that's off. Or your needle's not going up and down and you hit your foot control. Make sure on some of the machines you have a little on the handle right here, you can engage the bobbin winder, it's a clutch, and you can disengage it. So make sure that that's fully disengaged. That's another thing to double check. on that one, on the older styles. Um, what about if you're embroidering is a common thing. You're embroidering and your thread's really twisting off of here, and you can see it kind of just wrapping up, and it's like you can see it's twisting as it's going, right? What do you do in that circumstance? Because sometimes you'll get break threads, you'll get shred stitches when it's doing that, because it'll try to jump out of different areas. What I really like to do is, especially on the coned ones and stuff like that, I'll put a little thread net on it. And or, see how this machine has a thread stand? Not all machines have that, so they do make an external thread stand. And what that does is it allows it to have time to spin and untwist, because when it's getting on the spool, it's twisting up, right? So it allows it to have enough time to unwind by the time it gets in this area. So, like I say, a thread net works fabulous just to give it extra tension for the twisting, and then the thread stand. These are wonderful, and you can use the thread stand with larger cones as well. So it really makes it a nice feature to have that. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Oh, how about like should I oil my machine? That's a huge one, because a lot of people don't know, should they or should they not? I actually recommend referring to your user manual, because there's so many different machines that require oiling, and a lot do not require oiling unless they're brought into the service center. We'll take the machine apart and oil all the factory points on there. Does anybody have any questions for me, like, are common issues that you might want some answers to that you're having? No? Well, if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to call one of our stores or call the service center. Like I say, most of the time, try to change your needle. Make sure you're using the proper needle size or the proper needle type. Cleaning out your lint, that's always important, so make sure to clean that all out. Also, good quality thread, that's important. Good quality thread actually can affect your stitching as well. Sometimes you'll get, if you're using a lower quality thread, you'll get where it'll pull tension, so it's inconsistent. And that's, if you feel the actual thread, you can feel that it's inconsistent. So you're gonna get inconsistent tensions. I highly recommend using a good quality thread like Madeira. It's a 40 weight thread. It's very consistent. It's polyester, so it's strong. You're not gonna get break threads as often.
Linda Gordon is asking, should you use canned air?
I honestly do not recommend it, and the reason being, especially in these machines now, there are some long arms you can they're built to. They have a little thing that blocks the lint from blowing back in the machine. But let's say you use canned air in here. What happens to the dust? It doesn't just come out, right? Not all of it. What happens is it kind of goes throughout the machine and blows in there, because I wish I had a machine to show you that was open, but you open the machine and there's a bunch of room in there, right? So you blow the lint, and it kind of it can go into pieces that you shouldn't have lint in there, and it'll kind of go up into the machine. So I don't recommend lint. I don't recommend canned air. What I do recommend is like a lint brush like this, or there's this one, but this one's really good at getting a lot of lint out of the machine.
That's it.
Okay. But yeah, so I do recommend good quality thread, because you'll get a better stitch, less shred threads. But yeah, like I say.
Anna Beth is asking, should I use a vacuum?
Yeah, you can definitely use a vacuum. We saw like the Ricard gems or like micro attachments. Those are fabulous because it's actually sucking the lint out of there. That's a great question. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but I think that's it. Good quality thread. Oh, one more thing. Let's say your machine was sewing good, the last project you did something on, So you were doing a quilt, it was sewing beautifully, and now you started a new project, and now your machine's not sewing very good. When you think about that, I hear that often, and it's like, what did you change between? Was it the bobbin? Was it the thread? Try another spool of thread. Try another bobbin. Try a new needle, because a lot of times that prevents it from having to come into the service center. Because normally it's like the bobbin might be bad, because they do expand over time and crack. It's good to double check your bobbin is, you know, true all the way around. It's not cracking, because they can go bad. So yeah, just double checking to see what you changed. But other than that, I appreciate everybody's time, and don't hesitate to call or email, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much.